So, Aryeh, I know that you've spent the past 4 years running around, really changing the state of Israel, changing the relationship between Israel and the rest of the world. I know it's impossible on a show like this, but if you can just share with us just a few highlights that you've experienced as really somebody who was part of the few people that were real ambassadors for the Jewish people, someone who has been involved in the Abraham Accords that have shifted the course of peace in the Middle East, and all the work that you've been doing. If you could just share with us just a few highlights of your work over the past 4 years.
So thanks for the question. It is impossible to decide what the few highlights are, but I'll share something that I think is relevant in the news today. I remember when Ambassador Friedman first offered me the job, I turned at him and I said, look, I appreciate it. I think there are people more qualified than I am. There's certainly people who are smarter than I am, but I'm also a liability for you. I walk around with a kippah on my head. And, when you represent the United States of America, people should know that you're making the decisions in the best interest of the United States of America, and not somebody who thinks for some reason that you have an issue with dual loyalty, or you're confused in terms of who you represent and why you're there. And he paused for a moment, and I remember this conversation extremely clearly. And he said, Aryeh, if you ask me that question again, you're probably not qualified for the job. But don't for a half a second think that a kippah holds you back in representing the United States of America. That in any other mission that we would put an ambassador anywhere else in the world, your knowledge of the language, of the people, of the politics, of the spirit would make you the number one choice to be representing the United States of America there.
Wow.
Don't you dare for a second think that that holds you back. And if it does, you're not the right guy for the job. But if you think that your yarmulke propels you forward, then you absolutely are the right guy for the job. And I realized at that moment that I had to shift my thinking. And it was maybe his second speech that he had given ever as the ambassador. He said something that still makes my soul elevate. And he was just extremely clear that it's a quintessential American value to be pro-Israel. And that doesn't mean you need to agree with everything Israel does. It's a quintessential Aryeh Lightstone value to value my wife, Aryeh Lightstone. We don't agree on everything, right? But that doesn't mean that I value her, treasure her, or appreciate her any less, even when we have disagreements, right? There's the ability on behalf of the United States of America to recognize the pure miracle that the state of Israel is. And I would just recommend for people who get confused about that vis-a-vis politics, go back and read Michael Oren's book about the founding of the Middle East and the United States' relationship with it, going back to the founding of the United States and our original relationship with the Middle East, going back to the 1700s. This is not a new relationship. It's a deep relationship, and it's a meaningful relationship. And frankly, it's based as much on the soul as it is on the mind. Today, in the last 25 years, it's a no-brainer that Israel gives pound for pound to the United States greater than any of our other allies. It's not such a big country, right, but on a pound for pound basis, Israel is a reciprocal alliance with the United States of America, and it's in our 100% interest to stand shoulder to shoulder with them.
So you've had opportunity that few have in life, which is, these Abraham Accords have shifted the Middle East in a way that nobody foresaw, and you were really on the inside. Can you share with us some of the mindsets that maybe we can't read in the lines of the reports that we watch as to the interest that the other countries have in making peace, what Israel represents to the Middle East, what Judaism represents to the Middle East in a way that maybe we don't fully appreciate?
Yeah, so there are a couple different points that I'll point to. In May of 2017, President Trump went on his first international trip, and he started in Riyadh. He spoke to the leaders of the Muslim countries and the Arab countries then, and he turned and said to them very pointedly that if you want to stop radical Islam, it starts with you. It doesn't start with us. This is your issue, not our issue. We'll fight it together, but we're not going to assume responsibility for what you have on your home territory. And then he got on a plane and flew to Jerusalem. Now, what's interesting about that is two things. Every single U.S. public plane, our government planes that fly publicly, we've got other people who fly places not so publicly, but when we fly publicly from Israel to other places in the Gulf, we always have what's called a technical stop, where you stop in Amman, Jordan. The plane lands, it I don't know, does whatever, something happens on a technical stop, and then goes to Israel because Saudis don't have a relationship with Israel. So therefore, the air traffic control, I guess, border patrol makes you stop in Jordan, which does have a relationship with Israel, and then continue on to Israel. I'm sure there's lots of technical reasons why that happens. But the president looked at that happening and said, why in the world would I do that? As the president of the United States of America, you don't make a bonus on the deal that you get. Your only commodity is your time, right? So you have the most powerful person in the world, regardless of whether it's President Biden, President Trump, President Clinton, President anybody. That position is the most important person in the world. And it's now spending 90 minutes on a technical stop because Israel and Saudi don't have formal relations. We, the United States, have great relations with Saudi. We, the United States, have spectacular relationships with Israel. And we have to make a technical stop in Amman on the way. And the president said, I'm not doing that. And everyone's like, well, you have to. He's like, really? Do I? And he flew directly to Jerusalem. And it was a powerful statement with all the leaders of the Muslim and Arab world, and then flying direct without a technical stop to Jerusalem and going immediately to the Western Wall, being the first sitting president to go there. There were zero apologetics about our relationship with Israel and zero apologetics about Israel being the Jewish homeland of the Jewish people. And here's something that I think is incredibly important to see in this region and around the world. When you apologize for who you are, nobody respects you. When you stand up with dignity and pride of who you are, everybody respects you.
That's a great
and
point.
Just the other thing that happened in 2017, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, the crown prince of the UAE, broke ground and announced the building of the Abraham Family Center, which is to be on one piece of property in the capital of Abu Dhabi, a large mosque, a large synagogue, and a large church. Because within the United Arab Emirates, they decided 20 years ago that they are going to get further with robust coexistence than they will with division. And the rest of the world, including, by the way, Israel, could learn something from that. Right now in the parliamentary democracies, all you try to do is find out what divides this group from that group and see how you can edge into that group for a political vote. You have, again, democracies are the best in the world. I'm not comparing the two in a negative way at all, but the tremendous investment in saying we want to coexist has been paid off in spades. The UAE was ready for this normalization, not as that they were extending themselves to Israel as a favor to the United States of America, but that the UAE and Israel were going to uplift the entire region by working together. They both saw this as tremendous win-wins. And from the United States of America, we achieved a tremendous peace dividend from this. So you have to be proud about who you are, and if everything else will follow after that. I can go on about this for hours.
It's an incredible concept. The show is all about being an ambassador, and when you're an ambassador, you have to be proud of who you are, no matter where you are, whether you are just in your neighborhood or you are across the world. And I think bringing this up in the context in which you are is very powerful. Share with us a little bit about, the moment, if you can, or was there a moment where this piece became real? When we watch it after it's already announced. Was there a moment sort of where everyone started to realize this was going to happen? What was that like?
Well, there was a phone call on August 13th, and that was an incredible moment because it's very rare in life that you get to be part of like a secret of something that has transformational power. And there were very few of us who had that, and it was an actual secret. We were all somewhat surprised that amongst the three countries, our team was very good at keeping secrets. You saw with our launch of the Peace to Prosperity Plan, January 28, 2020, nobody knew what was in it because only 10 of us had it, and we don't leak on each other. But now you've got additional countries involved, and we're like, it's going to leak, and it's going to take some of the air out of the balloon. Complete and total operational secrecy. And the reason for that is everybody involved in that deal knew that it was bigger than them, including the president, including the crown prince, including the prime minister. This was bigger. It is very rare. I talk about this all the time. In 2020, in 10 years from now, in 20 years from now, we'll remember 2020 as the year that something happened to the world, the COVID-19 virus, and the year that some leaders decided to change the world permanently for the better. And when you can make a transformational decision like that, and I credit the president and the prime minister and the crown prince and King Hamad and King Mohammed and the leaders of Sudan and Kosovo for coming to say the world doesn't need to be the way it was. The world can be better, and I can make that change. Very powerful. But that doesn't answer your question. I'll tell you what answers your question. The first direct flight at the very end of August, the beginning part of September, on El Al, crossing Saudi airspace from Israel into Abu Dhabi, with the U.S. delegation and the Israeli delegation sitting side by side. And what happened is the El Al plane was taxiing. The lady gets on to make the announcement. Now, none of us have ever listened to those announcements. I mean, none, right? Who listens to that? And the lady makes the announcement. This is the first, and she starts to tear up. The first direct flight from Israel to Abu Dhabi, and the plane went wild. I mean, clapping, hooting, and hollering. And so much so that the El Al stewardesses, in their fine form, told us all to get back into our seats. And we were supposed to that. But when's the last time you've been on a plane where you've clapped at takeoff with a takeoff announcement? So you can only imagine the enthusiasm that we had when we landed, greeted royally with tremendous excitement. And they koshered an entire hotel for the delegation. How many people on the Israeli delegation only eat kosher? I don't know. How many people on the U.S. delegation? Not very many of us. The entire hotel, just to give you one point about when you're proud of who you are, I went to the mashgiach we were at the St. Regis in Abu Dhabi, and I went to him and I said, well, you've got kosher food and non-kosher food. How do I know about the plates? Which are the plates? He goes, because we were given the instruction to buy all brand new of everything. There's nobody in this hotel yesterday, today, or tomorrow who will eat on anything that any food has touched ever beforehand.
Wow.
And who does that? Wow. Really impressive. I mean, really impressive. Made me feel very proud.
Wow. That's amazing. Share with us for a few minutes, and I will have a few more minutes left with you. Share with us for a few minutes about you and your feelings, what it's like to be somebody who was so in the public eye. In general, I know that your career spans way even before your current appointment, but what's it like as somebody who walks around as an ambassador to the Jewish people in the various roles that you have? What has that done for you, and how has that made you who you are?
You have a tremendous responsibility, and what that means is if you take the day off, and for 4 years I took very few of them off because I think you taught me this a long time ago. If you love what you do, it's not called work. And every time I put on my embassy pin, my U.S. flag, my U.S. Israel flag, whatever is on my jacket that day, what greater pride and privilege am I ever going to have than representing the greatest country in the history of the world to a country that I adore and love. So, but you have tremendous responsibility. When I make a statement, I'm not speaking on behalf of Aryeh Lightstone or on behalf of even the Jewish people. I'm speaking on behalf of the United States of America, but it carries additional responsibility because Haaretz introduced me divisively when I was first appointed as Orthodox rabbi from Long Island, which is almost as flattering as when they call David Friedman the Orthodox bankruptcy attorney from Long Island, as though either of those are things that define us. They don't. They're part of who we are. Hopefully one day it'll be Nobel nominated. It won't be awarded because these are political now, but having been involved with 4 and with Kosovo 5 peace treaties in 6 months, something that no administration ever has accomplished a half of that in 4 years. I have tremendous pride in what we accomplished.
Yeah.
But enormous humility. The media has been very good at keeping us humble in this case.
Amazing. Well, we have so many more questions for you, and I hope we can bring you back again. But we thank you so much for your time, and thank you for what you do for our people, for shining your light on the world.
Can I make one comment, Charlie, to your crowd?
Yeah, please.
Number one is, I guess I said one comment. I'm going to make 2 comments. Number one is that we absolutely need more inspiration in this world. COVID brings out in some of us the best of us, like the Abraham Accords, and some of us the worst of us, the rioting and violence that you saw in many different places over the course of the summer and as recently as January 6th. It's up to us to elevate the conversation, not denigrate the conversation. The next time you want to talk about somebody, decide whether you actually need to talk about that somebody, or you can talk about something. You can talk about an idea. And that's what being inspired is all about. Getting to talk about ideas is what Shabbat is about. That's what being able to do that. If it doesn't start at home, it's not going to start anywhere. It's not starting from any of our leaders. We need to take this upon all of ourselves to be able to do that. But the second thing is, look, COVID's going to be behind us at some point in time. When you travel, I would just encourage you to do the following thing. add on to your trip to Israel, which all of your listeners should have on your absolute must visit, add on an Abraham Accord country. And when you stay in that hotel, when you get in that taxi cab, when you speak to your travel agent, tell them, because they made peace with Israel, I'm going to go spend some of my tourism dollars there.
Wow.
And you tell everybody that. And in that way, you become an ambassador. I hope that when you leave the whatever hotel, the Motel 8 or the Ritz-Carlton in Abu Dhabi, it doesn't make a difference to me. When you leave there, they come out and they say, the people who stayed here, they represent the best of the Jewish people. Because we all have to be ambassadors to that. So I hope you guys will join me in that mission, because it's a really holy and special endeavor.
Amazing. Aryeh, thank you so much for what you do for us, and continued success in all of your endeavors.
Thank you, Charlie, for inspiring all of us.
Thanks so much for watching. For more content, like and subscribe, and be sure to tune in live every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern at theshabbatshow.com or right here on YouTube.